Hi, this is Courtney, and I'm going to share some memories and pictures from our family vacation to Europe in 2014. We got up early on November 18th, and my grandpa took us to the Salt Lake City airport. We ate breakfast and waited to board our plane. I was so excited. After about 11 hours, we finally landed in Paris for a long layover. Bonjour, this means hello in French. We took the train into Paris and went to the Notre Dame Cathedral and then went to the Eiffel Tower. We climbed the stairs to the second level of the Eiffel Tower. That is 720 stairs, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful view from way up there. The Eiffel Tower was built in 1889 as the centerpiece for the World's Fair. The original plan was to tear it down after the fair, but it was kept standing by popular demand and has since become a major landmark in Paris. We rode the train back to the airport and got on another plane that took us to Venice, Italy. Ciao, that means hello in Italian. We landed in Venice, and my Uncle Michael and Auntie Z and my new baby cousin Matthew were there to pick us up. I was so excited to see my uncle and aunt again, and we would finally meet my new cousin. He is so adorable with the chubbiest little cheeks. After sleeping most of the next day recovering from jet lag, we set out the following morning on our road trip through Italy. First, we went to Florence. This city is the birthplace of the Renaissance. The word Renaissance means rebirth. The Renaissance was a rebirth of the Greek and Roman culture that had been lost for 1,000 years after the fall of Rome. It started in Florence in 1400 and spread throughout Italy and beyond over the next 150 years. We started our day at the Uffizi Gallery, which contains the largest collections of Renaissance paintings in Italy. I learned that the Renaissance was a time when artists rediscovered the beauty of the natural world. We looked at paintings from Michelangelo, Botticelli, Leonardo da Vinci, and many more. Next, we went to the Duomo. It is the center of Florence, and it's its main cathedral. The dome of the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. is patterned after this dome. We climbed spiral stairs to the top of the dome and were able to see the frescoes on the dome up close. Then we went to lunch nearby. Outside the restaurant, there were a group of men playing music. It was so pretty, we bought a CD from them, and that is the music playing in the background of this video. It's very common for musicians to play in town squares all over Europe. They also play in subway stations and even on subways itself. We finished our day by visiting the Accademia Museum, which contains the statue of David. The statue is 14 feet high and was sculpted in 1504 by Michelangelo. This is a David from the David and Goliath story in the Bible. The next morning we got up early and rode the train to the Cinque Terre. Cinque means 5 in Italian and terra means land. The Cinque Terre is a group of 5 villages built into the mountain along the Mediterranean Sea. There are no roads between the villages, so the only way to get to each village is by train or by hiking on the trails that connect each village. We started by taking the train to the furthest village named Monterosa. We played in the water for a while, and me and my brother kicked a soccer ball around on the beach with a local Italian boy. Then we started our hike to the next village of Vernazza. It was a beautiful hike with waterfalls, vineyards, and lots of stairs, so I was tired by the end. After a couple of hours, we came around the corner and saw the village of Vernazza. It was an amazing view. We walked around Vernazza and ate lunch along the waterfront. On our way home, we stopped in the town of Pisa. This is the home of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. The tower was started in the year 1173, and 5 years later, just as the base and first section were finished, someone said, "Is it just me, or does it look like it's crooked?" The tower was sinking into the marshy, unstable soil, but construction continued along with several attempts to try to straighten the tower, but it has always leaned. The next day we drove through Tuscany. This is the central region of Italy. It was really foggy that day, so we weren't able to see a lot of the countryside. Throughout Tuscany, there are many hill towns. These are towns that were built upon hills during medieval times in order to protect their inhabitants from intruders. The first hill town we toured was Montepulciano. This is the town where the Twilight movie New Moon was filmed. Then we went to my favorite hill town named Civita de Bagnoregio, or for short, Civita. You can't drive in this town. You have to walk across a bridge, and the view is amazing. This city existed since ancient Roman times and even survived a massive earthquake in the year 1695. The next morning we set out for a day of sightseeing in Rome. We started at the Colosseum. This amphitheater is over 2,000 years old and was built to hold 50,000 spectators. It was built as a gift to the Roman people to keep them happy and entertain them. All Romans, whether rich or poor, could come to the Colosseum and watch shows for free. I was able to see the stage where sadly many people lost their lives. During shows at the Colosseum, the public would watch and cheer as wild animals, slaves, criminals, and gladiators would fight each other to their death. As you look down at the Colosseum stage, you can see underground walls that form almost like a maze. This is where the wild animals and people would wait until their turn to go on stage and fight. Just outside the Colosseum is the Roman Forum. This is the ancient part of Rome that was built when Rome was a great empire. The Roman Forum contains the ruins of churches, government buildings, and even the grave of Julius Caesar. Next, we rode the subway to Vatican City. Even though it is located within Rome, Vatican City is actually its own country, the smallest country in the world. It is the headquarters of the Catholic Church. We toured the Vatican Museum, which ends with the Sistine Chapel. It was beautiful, but we weren't allowed to take pictures here, so we found one on the internet to show in this video. The ceiling of the Sistine Chapel was painted by Michelangelo and is a place where each new Catholic Pope is elected. Afterward, we went to St. Peter's Square. I saw the balcony where the Pope greets people. Then we went to St. Peter's Basilica. It is the largest church in the world and contains the tomb of Apostle Peter. It is also the spot where Peter was crucified 1,900 years ago. As soon as you walk in the basilica, you see Michelangelo's sculpture called the Pieta. It is a sculpture of Mary holding Jesus after he has been crucified. The next day, we drove about 30 minutes to a place called Ostia Antica. It is very similar to Pompeii. It wasn't buried in volcano ash like Pompeii was, but it was buried in mud following several floods, so the town of Ostia was preserved for us to be able to see today. We walked around the ruins and saw ancient apartment buildings, public bathhouses, restaurants, churches, and other buildings that date back to 620 BC. Wow, you're looking at a 2,600-year-old apartment building. Archaeologists are still discovering portions of Ostia today. Recently, they discovered a large mosaic and were cleaning it the day we got there. The next morning, we flew to Barcelona, Spain. Hola, yep, that's hello in Spanish. A lot of buildings in Barcelona were designed by a man named Antonio Gaudí. We started at a place called Park Güell. Gaudí originally intended it to be a high-end housing development, but it didn't work out. Today it is a park that many people visit when they come to Barcelona. There are funky buildings and cave-like structures and a room full of pillars. Next we went to a famous church named Sagrada Familia. This church was started in 1883 by Antonio Gaudí. He worked in it for 43 years until his death in 1926. Surprisingly, the church is still not finished. Our goal is to finish it by the 100th anniversary of Gaudí's death in 2026. The next day, we flew back to my aunt and uncle's house and spent the following day sightseeing in Venice. This was my favorite city. Venice doesn't have any cars. The entire city is built on water, so they use boats to get everywhere. We walked around the streets of Venice enjoying the nice weather. Venice is famous for its carnival festival, which is a huge 18-day celebration where everyone wears masks. Because of this, Venice has several stores that sell handmade and hand-painted masks. It was fun to look at all the different masks. I bought one to take home. After lunch, we had planned to take a gondola ride, but sadly it started raining, so we couldn't. The next day, we took a break from sightseeing, but we did take a little walk around my aunt and uncle's town. They live in a beautiful little village named Dardago that is about 45 minutes outside of Venice. These hiking trails are just down their street. While we were walking, I saw a giant spider and I screamed so loud I bet you could hear me in Utah. The next morning we drove to Slovenia. Aho, that means hello in the Slavic language. We first went to a place called the Predjama Castle. It is said that a man locked himself up in a castle for a year for committing a crime. The soldiers waited outside for him to come out to arrest him, but every day he threw cherries at them out the window of his castle. The soldiers couldn't figure out where he was getting the cherries. Finally, it was discovered that he was getting out through a secret cave on the other side of the mountain. It is so weird how they used to build castles right into the side of the mountain. After visiting the castle, we drove to a town called Lake Bled. The beautiful Bled Castle overlooks Lake Bled. It was foggy that day, so it made the lake and the castle look even more mystical. The next day we drove up to Austria. Guten Tag, this means hello or good day in German. The official language spoken in Austria is German. Austrian and Germantown have a tradition of holding Christmas markets through the month of December. They sell all sorts of Christmas crafts and food. We went to a Christmas market in a town named Klagenfurt. We ate bratwurst, which is kind of like a hot dog, and shopped around the market before heading home. It was so weird to think we had been in 3 countries in one day: Italy, Slovenia, and Austria. Even though the countries in Europe are so close to each other, the people in each country are very different from each other in how they look, the language they speak, and their culture. The next day, it was time to say goodbye to Italy. Ciao. This word means both hello and goodbye in Italian. We flew into Paris, where we had a layover until the following day. After checking into our hotel, we rode the train into Paris to enjoy it all lit up at night. We took a bus ride through the city to see some interesting landmarks around Paris. A really nice Parisian woman happened to sit next to us on the bus and pointed out some major sights to us as we drove by them. It was so cool. Then we decided to walk around the city. We bought some locks and placed them on the Pont des Arts Bridge. People placed locks on this bridge to promise lasting love to their loved ones. Then we walked around the Louvre courtyard. The Louvre houses 12 miles of the world's greatest paintings, including the famous Mona Lisa. It was so cold outside that we decided to take the subway to the Eiffel Tower instead of walking. It was so beautiful all lit up at night. At the top of every hour, the lights blinked and sparkled for 5 minutes. It was so beautiful and a perfect ending to our vacation. Au revoir. You guessed it, that means goodbye in French.